Yes, welcome to another edition of the Boomtown Pod, all things MMA. I am your host, Andrew Kahn, and officially welcoming to the show our newest co-host, Mr. Cole Smith at Sandman Boxing. How are you, brother?
Good, man. It's been a good day. It's been a good week. How are you?
Yeah, I'm at, man. We've been talking about this. I had you back on in season 1, probably the second or third episode ever of this podcast. And now I'm at season 2 and whatever number this is. So it's been pretty crazy, man. And I'm happy to have you on board officially.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. It's when I saw you when I saw you were looking, man. This will be fun. This is gonna be awesome.
Luke, really appreciate Luke going in the GOAT. I really appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in, Luke. And also thanks, Ken. You're handsome, I guess. You're not too bad yourself. Anyways, nonetheless, we couldn't do this show without our great sponsors. Of course, those people being down at the ticker down below, the Blue Collar Media Group, Stellar Gear, Sandman Boxing System, Connexus Credit Union, and of course, PAWFC, which, I mean, I cannot wait. I heard a lot of great things coming from their camp. It sounds like number 2 is going to be on the way very, very shortly. So stay tuned for all the latest in that. And speaking of that, this segment here is called The Week That Was, and it's sponsored by those great folks at PAWFC. Visit PAWFC.com for all the latest news and info. I know that they've had some highlight reel clips going on where you could actually hear my voice from the commentary if you missed the pay-per-view. So that was pretty cool. I'll be honest, I haven't watched it yet because I wanted to give myself some time to like analyze that I actually was fucking there.
You keep cutting out, Andrew. It might be my feed, yours, but I'm gonna. Is there any way I can sign off and come back on here?
Done. We'll get you going. A little technical difficulties, but hey, that happens. Welcome to the world of technology. Anyways, like I said, this is The Week That Was, sponsored by PAWFC.com. Not only, again, like I said, we kind of been broadcasting about it and talking about it for a while. They've been really great to us the entire time, and I'm very happy that I'm going to be part of the second event. I can make that at some point very, very official when the contract gets signed, but Clayton reached out and Jenica as well, and I'm really looking forward to being on their crew and being there for the second event. I don't know where it's going to be yet, but nonetheless, like I said, check out that website down below, PAWFC.com, for all the latest news and info. Of course, this segment, like I said, The Week That Was, and I wanted to get into this with Cole, but I'll kick into it because we're going to wait for him to sign back in. UFC Vegas 48 took place this past weekend. We had Jamal Hill taking on Mr. Walker, Johnny Walker, who's been, he was an explosive fighter when he first came onto the scene, and now I'm a little confused by what Johnny Walker is, and Cole is back with us, so there we go. Finally got him back on the screen. Hopefully this works. Can you hear me now? Still working on the audio. It's okay. It's okay. I'm hoping he's here.
Having troubles here. I can't get back on.
I'm going to call you a rookie, and I'll let it slide. But nonetheless here, what we're seeing is a great matchup at UFC Vegas 48, Hill versus Walker. This was a crazy, crazy scene. I mean, realistically, what I got to see was two components. I know that Hill had a ton of, pumping up into the fight card, and people were, kind of, what is a prospect that is Jamal Hill? Well, we got it. We got that answer when he knocked out Johnny Walker viciously, may I add. An incredible fight for Jamal Hill, who keeps continuing to roll. He lost his first match, as we all know, against Paul Craig. His arm kind of bounced out of his socket, and everybody was like, oh, man, what is happening, and stuff like that. And, he kind of lost a little bit of steam, but back-to-back wins for Hill, and I feel like he's going to be ready for that top 15 contention after beating a top 15 guy in Johnny Walker. Mr. Walker, you can check out our Facebook page. I posted the video there. He got knocked the fuck out. Best way to put it. That was vicious knockout. Hit him dead in the temple. I've never seen a reaction quite like Mr. Walker's when his hands kind of like fell back and he fell down. And I was like, ooh, what is really going on here? So I'm happy to see that his camp said he's okay. He's in good spirits. He's going to come back. I don't know what's next for Johnny Walker, but like I said, Hill continues to climb up into the top 15 with this win for sure. It'll be interesting for sure to see where Johnny Walker goes. I don't know. I know that he's worked with different camps, and I see the social medias of him goofing around and stuff like that. And he's like a comical guy, a charismatic, funny guy. But I just really don't know at this point what Johnny Walker is. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough sledding for Johnny Walker. But for Mr. Hill, he's going to continue to climb up the charts. That is for damn sure. Also on that card, UFC Vegas 48, again, Jim Miller. Let's just take and appreciate. This is me giving an absolute toast, a toast, if you will, to the one and only Jim Miller, who continues to be one of the best fighters in the entire game. And honestly, it's like he keeps continuing to blow my mind at his age. Now, if you don't know, Jim Miller has been in the UFC for quite some time. He's a veteran now who's almost, I think he's a win away from being the all-time win leader in UFC combat. So that's pretty incredible as its own. And he won his last fight. And again, he's on a 2-fight win streak. This is the really cool part about him. He has called out some heavy contenders in this as well. He actually called out the one and only Donald Cowboy Cerrone or Joe Lozon, who are matching up in May. So it'll be interesting to see where they kind of are going with that fight, which is going to be, kind of cool. Jim Miller will continue to roll. I really hope that, this is just me being the old school UFC guy. I would really like to see Jim Miller take on Cowboy Cerrone. Now, I know Mr. Lozon is a UFC veteran, and so is Cowboy, but just the nostalgic factor for me growing up, Jim Miller was a warrior. Donald Cerrone in his prime was an absolute warrior. So I think matching these two up would just be a dynamite event. And I think it's just it spells fireworks, which for me, I'm all about. And again, Jim Miller, shout out to you, kind sir Jim Miller. You are an absolute legend. And one day I hope to meet you. He reached out to our DMs one time, so hopefully I can get a hold of him and bring him onto the podcast. I'd absolutely love that. Cole's having some technical difficulties. For those that are tuned in, he'll be joining us, I'm hoping, at some point today. If not, he'll be on the next podcast. We're just, glitching out a little bit. That happens when you're live. Anyways, moving on to our next segment. This is contract news. Big announcement right before his fight. Izzy Adesanya. He has re-signed with the UFC. I can't remember the specifics on how many fights. I think it's 4 to 5 fights. A ton of money got thrown his way, and rightfully so. Israel Adesanya is a great champion. He's a fighting champion. He's super talented. There's really not a glaring hole in his game, except for when he moved to light heavyweight and got exposed when his wrestling happened. I mean, Robert Whittaker kind of took him down a couple times. Had some decent ground control, but at times too, Izzy was just popped right back up and was good to go. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, Izzy continues to roll no matter, who faces him in that middleweight division. I honestly don't even know. He's lapping guys now. He said it himself. I'm lapping people. And that's just, it's absolutely incredible that he's doing such an incredible job lapping your own division. That's talented. That hasn't been done since the ranks of GSP and Anderson Silva. Like, it really hasn't. I mean, Conor went on his little run and he murked the division and then, won belts, moved up, but never really defended anything anywhere. So, legitimacy, Israel Adesanya is one of the pound-for-pound greatest fighters of this generation for sure. And also, I just think, again, I look at that middleweight division and I continue to, alleviate my thoughts who might be one of the better fighters. I just don't know who this guy faces at this point that he hasn't already beat. Like, I see Marvin Vettori calling him out again. That's a pointless fight. Vettori made him look like chump change. It got so boring that Izzy was smacking his ass on the side of the cage. So, I mean, I just don't know. I think it's one of those things where it could be an interesting matchup if, I don't know. Again, I'm going to bring Cole on. Hopefully this works now.
I think it's going good.
Okay, fantastic. So there's Cole. That is our official co-host.
Oh, man.
It's okay. That happens. Welcome to the podcast world. Wouldn't be a good podcast without a glitch, Wouldn't be. So we're just getting back into it. Of course, like I said, Israel Adesanya re-ups with the UFC. Again, I don't know where he goes with the middleweight division because I just think he's cleared out that entire thing. He's like he said, he's lapping people now. And to be honest, I just don't see a matchup where I'm like, okay, intriguing, because he's beaten everybody at this point.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think he's even he doesn't even look excited.
No.
To be honest, he's like playing it safe. Like I don't know. It's I went from loving Izzy to kind of like not bored, but like he's just doing enough to win now instead of before when he was coming up. He was destroying people.
Right.
Now he's just doing enough each round, and it's not very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you fully. I think he's played it safe the last couple of fights. Obviously, but like I said earlier, Marvin Vettori, when he took him on, he was like spanking his ass and was like, "Come on, dude, like do fucking something. What are you doing? You wanted this fight, you wanted me, and here I am making you look like chump change." And that's the caliber of fighter as he is. I mean, he's that damn good. Or it's like, he doesn't have a glaring hole except for again when he moved up to light heavyweight and took on Jan, who's an incredible wrestler, but is, 50 pounds heavier than him. So he just sat on him and beat him up for 4 rounds, which, hey, if it's working, why stop it, right?
Definitely, man. I totally agree. Like why take damage?
Makes
Even
sense to
even
me.
when you look at comparing to kind of what John Jones has been up to, he hasn't done anything crazy or devastating or anything in his last 3-4 fights. It's almost like just playing it safe. And even like with that fight, Robert Whitaker, like I feel like if he would have just done a little more each round, but it's almost like he was I don't know, like starstruck or something.
It's like Whitaker played it safe too. Like when I was
Mhm.
watching, I was like, Whitaker, when he's an explosive killer, when he went on his big streak, he was the aggressor. He pushed people to limits, and that's the style of fighter that Robert Whitaker is. He doesn't really have like I would say one thing is better than another. I mean, his wrestling's pretty good when he can get it, a takedown advanced. I mean, he was taking Izzy down at ease, but it just was like pop up and wouldn't do anything on the ground. And like you and I watched that fight, and I was just like, I feel like I had Whitaker winning the fight, and that's only because Izzy played safe to win. And I just thought Whitaker was the busier fighter in round 3, 4, and 5. 1 and 2 was dominant Izzy. Like, it was crazy, one-sided. But then I saw the takedowns, and then I saw the control, and then I saw the counter punching, and I saw the octagon control, and I went, you know what? I don't think Izzy was winning this fight, but in the UFC, like so many times before, hey, if you want to be the best in the world, you've got to beat the best in the world and not let it fall into the judge's hands. And unfortunately, that's kind of happened in that situation.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and on a softer note, this was one of the sadder things that I saw, and Roxanne Modafferi is one of the legends in women's MMA, and she is, everybody knows her as a Star Wars geek. She has always had some of the coolest little intros ever. She finally called it a career, which was, I think the right call. Roxanne has been, a veteran of the sport forever, and when I went to PAWFC, I talked to, Sarah McMahon, and Sarah McMahon, and I talked to Felicia Spencer and Sarah Kaufman and even Cyborg, and they said Roxanne doesn't know the sport anything. We actually should be thanking her. And that's true, because I mean, for a long time, women's MMA wasn't really a thing, but Roxanne Modafferi was, right?
Yeah, and honestly, you have to love her, right? She's like she's beat everybody. She's fought everybody. She's there. She's like that. She's like that the fighter who on any given night can beat anybody, right? She's there every second of the fight. When you're in there with her, you're in a fight the whole time, and that's what you gotta. That's what I love about her, anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree fully. I think she's just like one of those girls that just never gives up. In the first round, she got absolutely dominated, and I was like, oh man, I was texting Charmaine Tweet during the fight too, and she's also very close with Roxanne, and we're just shooting the breeze on what kind of girl she is, and we're like, don't give up, because round 3, Roxanne can just pull something out of her ass and can finish this fight, and I mean, she gave it her all in that 3rd round. I gave her the round. She got a couple takedowns, had a couple nice counter punches, earned her opponent's respect a little bit more than at the start of the fight. So she gave up the glove. She told Joe and Daniel that it was, the time has come. I'm done. The UFC and MMA is not my sport anymore. I'm going to continue to coach, but this is it for me. And with that being said, a round of applause to Roxanne Modafferi, because she has been a legend, a pioneer of the sport, and no one ever has anything in this world bad to say about Roxanne Modafferi, and honest to God, you can't.
No, yeah, definitely. She's awesome. She's fun to watch. She's a good person, and it was awesome watching her.
And some of the nerdiest and coolest like intros you'll ever see. Go to YouTube, kids, if you don't know who Roxanne Modafferi is, and watch some of her walkouts. It's absolutely amazing. And another signing that happened in contract news, as you see on there, who the fuck is that guy? That's Jeremy Stevens. He has officially left the UFC and has signed with PFL. Now, I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall with Jeremy Stevens when it came to the UFC. I mean, he was an anchor in that division. We got to watch him live when he absolutely picked apart Gilbert Melendez. It was a beatdown like no other. But that was really the last time Jeremy Stevens was relevant. I mean, and that's going back to UFC 218, which you think about it now, that's a long time ago. Sheesh.
Right, and honestly, the whole dispute between him and Pettis it's going to keep that exciting. I think, I think that's I'd watch that. I'd watch that again and again, and I think that's a smart move. He'll probably make some money there and do some big things, and it's exciting to see what he's going to do over there. And I like the PFL. I like their system. I like the whole league. So it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into it a little bit more than I have previously, but I mean, the more that I understand the point system and how it all kind of adapts and works, it's a little different. But I mean, now I've kind of gotten the full base of it, and it's a cool system. I really wish some of the things that they would implement over to the UFC. Now, I know it's probably not ever going to happen. I think the UFC system might be just a little bit broken for my liking. I think it's old. I think it doesn't work. Some judges are just absolutely clueless, as we saw this past weekend where somebody gave a 49-46 decision to Whitaker. Like, what fight were you watching that it was 49-46? Like, I'm just baffled by some of them. And so was Michael Bisping was losing his mind. I mean, Bruce Buffer wasn't even done the intro. And Michael Bisping was like, what? Did you just say 49-46? But yeah, so what do you think of Jeremy Stevens? Do you think this is the right home for him over Bellator or over anything else?
I mean, it's tough to say. I'm a big Bellator fan, so I like that, and I like that. I wouldn't mind seeing him over there, just because there's a lot of fights over there. But I think PFL is doing some cool things, so it's nice to see people moving over there and them kind of building a foundation. So I definitely don't hate it, and like I said, the thing between him and Pettis, I think could lead to something cool. I know Pettis wants some rematches there, but I like it. I do.
I mean, Anthony Pettis is a monster on his own. I think it's an intriguing thing too. And the other thing too is Anthony Pettis started up his own company too, right? Showtime Entertainment. So he's got his MMA category too. So who knows? Maybe he makes some money, and after the PFL contract runs out with Jeremy Stevens, or even during the time in PFL, which I'm hoping for. I think everybody wants that to happen. I think it'd be fireworks, like you said. Couldn't agree more. And interesting times for Jeremy Stevens. Like I said, he's lost his last 5 fights, and when you lose 5 in the UFC, that's writings on the wall. And I mean, it's not that his fights were boring. Most of them were pretty entertaining, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, he had Jose Aldo absolutely rocked, and then got kicked in the liver and just folded him. And I mean, at that point, you could see the momentum starting to derail. But he was winning that fight. I thought he was beating Jose pretty badly. And credit to Jose Aldo, who just continues this legendary streak of just coming the fuck back, which is absolutely amazing. It's incredible what he's been able to do in the second half of his career. Because let's face it, we all wrote off Jose Aldo when he lost to Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, like it's tough. Like that's a tough loss, And then for the rematch never to happen, and then he had those tough fights with Max, and then it was like, and then all of a sudden now he's on like a 3-4 fight win streak, stopping guys. Yeah, he's like reborn. He's like a robot. It's awesome.
It's crazy. And he's moving, and he's kicking again. The one thing that eluded him all that time was that his kicking was so good, and his ability to just start your guy in close and then hit him with something. That was his recipe for success, and it's good to see him finally get back to that structure. So whoever his coaching team is, they knew what his recipe for success was. They formulated it, and now he's back better than ever. And it's amazing to see because this man's 35 years old, and could be on another title run.
Definitely. Yeah, it was actually frustrating watching him fight for a while because he wasn't doing anything. And I was just like I thought, yeah, like you said, I thought like that one punch just like, I don't know, like did something to him. Like, but now he's back, which is nice. So
McGregor was living rent-free in his head for quite some time after that. But, 13 seconds, probably be living in my head too, absolutely rent-free. Moving on to part 2, which is Into the Future. It is sponsored by Connexus Credit Union and the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, where you can graciously find us there as well. Their home for podcasting in Saskatchewan is absolutely incredible. I just want to give a quick little shout-out. Actually, Mark Johnson, who works at My 92 in Regina here, morning show host, he has been doing the sobriety kick, and they actually brought him onto the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, and they talked about his sobriety and the struggles that he faced, and I listened to that today, and I thought it was an incredible story. So shout out Mark Johnson and Saskatchewan Podcast Network. You guys do some tremendous things, and we are happy to be part of that crew. Now, getting into that, we're going to look into the future, as in this weekend, because this is an interesting matchup. Islam Makhachev, 21-1. Versus the man who just don't give a fuck, Bobby Green, 29, 12-1, and fought 2 weeks ago. So this is an interesting concept for me because, Bobby Green is a fighter's fighter. He is getting the love and respect that he deserves. I've always been a Bobby Green fan. I think he's just a come-forward attitude and just brings it. He can get taken down. He's lost it to everyone. He's lost to Dustin Poirier and was, and always humble. That's what I like about Bobby Green. He's super real. But he is getting in there with a man who is essentially Khabib 2.0.
And man, like anyone who uses the Philly shell, I'm in. I love it. I love it. Everything about Bobby Green, I love. He's accurate. He likes to stand up. He's defensive. He's got that swag. He's And even when you look at his resume and his losses, most of the time he only lost because of himself, because he never did enough, because he never threw enough, because he goes into that defensive mode, but you don't score points when you're defending. And he gets into that defensive, you can't hit me, and then he gives up rounds, but he's never really got beat down before, and I like him a lot.
Man, his performance at UFC 271 was absolutely phenomenal. He just he kicked off the card, and I literally texted you, said, if that's how we're kicking off this card, this is going to be phenomenal. And it was a great card start to finish, but he was just so precise. But he's going in there against a guy who is trained by Khabib Nurmagomedov. It is Islam Makhachev, who has literally been compared to, again, Khabib. And everything about this guy screams Russian Eagle, man. This is what their camp is. Of course, we all know that, American Top Team, Khabib was there for a really long time, was essentially a wrestling coach. Now he's kind of done his own thing, and he's been working with all these Russian fighters in Dagestan. And honest to God, man, you couldn't have a better teacher. And it's just Islam takes everything that Khabib was good at, but almost is better. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a tough fight. Yeah, Islam is I'm not betting against him. That's for sure. I know I can see Bobby's trying to get in his head, calling him boring, calling him he's trying to make this a stand-up fight because he knows, I think he knows what's he's in for, and it's going to be a long night, I think.
Well, and Islam Makhachev almost didn't have an opponent because his previous opponent had to draw out of the fight on, again, 2 weeks' notice. I'm drawing a blank on who it was supposed to be. I'm completely forgetting. I'm just But nonetheless, Bobby Green is
Dariush.
Dinero Dariush, who I want to get to right quickly. It sounds like, all things considered, it could be a weird situation with Dinero. From what I understand is that he has a ruptured or torn PCL. But they don't want it. It's not bad enough that it requires surgery, but they're also on the cautious side of hey, man, maybe surgery is your best option because the layoff could be potentially longer if we're just going to rehab this thing. And Daniel Barriouche is like one of my favorite fighters. Like he's so unpredictable. He's had some killer fights in 2021. So I was really looking at this matchup because they're both extremely great wrestlers. So that's what I was really looking forward to. Because I mean, Daniel on his back is equally as good as Makhachev on, being there. So, I mean, on top mount. So it's going to be a little bit crazy. This matchup, I don't know. I think the betting odds say it themselves. I mean, Islam Makhachev is a minus 900 favorite. And Bobby Green coming in at plus 645. So if you want to hit some bonus money and want to spend $5 and maybe potentially win 140, well, then Bobby Green's your guy. You're not winning anything on Islam Makhachev. I'll tell you that. You'll win 9 cents. So save your money where you can. Nonetheless, also on that card is a return of a Canadian, which I'm really looking forward to because he kind of disappeared into the abyss. Haven't seen him for a while. Misha Serkinov is back, of course, representing Canada, which is awesome, versus Mr. Turman at 17-5. Serkinov coming in at 15-7. A very intriguing matchup. Turman is the favorite in this fight. Serkinov, the underdog. Again, I think that's the right spread. I think they have Turman at minus 210 and Serkinov at plus 140. And it makes sense to me because Misha has been pretty inactive for quite some time. But it's such a crazy, MMA is such a crazy sport because you can take Serkinov, for instance, who was this prospect that was up and coming and beating some of the bigger names in that division at the time, went on a bit of a losing streak, won a couple more, and is kind of like a 500 fighter in the UFC now. So this is kind of like Misha Serkinov's make it or break it fight if he can take that next step to being elite like he was.
Yeah, and even Turman, I think it has been hit or miss lately. Same with him. I think they've kind of had the same. They started off strong and then had some trouble. So it might be hit or miss for both of them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think Serkinov, for me, is the better striker. Turman is a better wrestler, but Serkinov's such a big body in that division that if he gets on top mount, I think it could be some trouble. Serkinov does have some decent wrestling as well. I should say that. I mean, you've seen it against, guys like Volkan Ozdemir and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where Serkinov goes. I think this is a make it or break it fight for both guys. And for betting purposes, I know Turman's a safe bet, but again, I think it's one of those split deal things for me. I'm rooting for Misha Serkinov just for the Canadian factor, and honestly, he was starching people when he was coming up, so I hope he can regain that starch capability and find himself on a bit of a win streak.
Yeah, definitely. Gotta go Canadian. Gotta show that Canadian support. I'm with you.
Shout out to our American friends. We still love you. Still very much love you. We were supposed to have a special guest, Cameron Strandlund, join us. I just want to quickly say this quickly. His girlfriend was in a car accident today, so our thoughts and prayers are with him and his girlfriend. Hopefully everything is okay in that aspect. I know Cameron would love to join us. He's been texting me all week. One of my great friends, and he's just an absolute MMA junkie. He texts me every single time a card's on, so I was thrilled to bring him on. But nonetheless, we'll probably bring him on after the card that we're about to preview for you, which is, of course, UFC 272 taking place in 2 weeks' time. That's the next time you're going to hear a podcast from us. This card, man. This card is bananas. Shout out to Sean Shelby because he crushed the matchmaking in this. We obviously know that our main event is a non-title fight between Kobe Chaos Kington and Jorge Street Jesus Masvidal. And man, I'm telling you straight up, have no fucking idea who's going to win this fight.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't. It's
nuts. This is like, oh man, I'm excited. Even just looking at that, man, I want Masvidal. I do want Masvidal. I want him to win, but I honestly think Covington is other than Usman, he's the man. I do. I think he has it all, and I think it's going to be a cool fight. The thing is like with Masvidal, like ever since he kind of stepped it up, and he came back from that little getaway he had, and he's just been you know, he went on that streak, and then he fought Usman twice, you know, and so it's not like he's really had like you know, where okay, Masvidal's fallen off. He fought the champ twice and lost. So let's see how he does against number 2, you know. It's going to be a good fight for him, I think.
I just want to know how Masvidal's face is. Like, he got starched by Usman. That punch is going to be one of the next. You're a boxer. You can appreciate the footwork that Usman moved into that and the connection and timing, because 3 seconds prior to that, Masvidal was smiling. There's a clip of it where like Masvidal's like, all right, that was a good one, and then Usman just tags him, and I've never seen a punch where the sweat just fucking obliterates off a guy's face.
That was gross. It was perfect. And you know, the more I see Usman, the more respect I have for him. He's always improving, you know, and to beat Masvidal stand up, that's huge. So
crazy. I didn't see it going that way, but man, Kamaru Usman, I'm telling you guys, pound for pound, he's going to give GSP a run for his money. That welterweight division back in the day, I mean, GSP's, his stand-up was elusive. It was good. It was pretty precise, too. His Superman punch is obviously one of the most noted punches ever. And his jab, I mean, we saw it so many times against guys like Josh Koscheck and Jake Shields and Nick Diaz, where, you know, guys who were pretty decent strikers got outstruck by GSP. But we're seeing an evolution in the welterweight division. Now we're seeing Usman, who's this well-rounded guy who can wrestle you, and that was his bread and butter for a while. And now his hands have started going because he's been training with guys like Francis Ngannou, and you're just like, oh my God. Like, I don't honestly know. I think Chaos is the only matchup in the welterweight division that I go, okay, maybe, because he's taken him 5 rounds in both of those fights. And I'm like, okay, I could see maybe the third time being the charm. And obviously, I think this fight is probably going to be the guy who gets to fight for the title next, which in a roundabout way is truly bizarro, thinking that Usman has literally knocked these guys out twice now. So it's just like, you know, we talked about Izzy lapping the division. Well, Usman's on his way to doing that too. All intents and purposes, I do think Colby Covington wins this fight. And the only reason why, Street Jesus is a striker. His wrestling's awful. It's probably the reason why he has 10 of those 15 losses, or literally because his wrestling is not great. And even Covington saying, you know, when we worked together at America Top Team, I would take him down for chump change and just beat the shit out of him to get pennies back. You know, and I'm like, wow, you don't like this guy at all. And let's not forget, the craziest part about this and the narrative behind this, these guys were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They were in each other's corners. They were each other's sparring partners. They were in each other's like wrestling camps. And they literally said, I will never fight this guy because I respect him too much. Boy, time's a bitch. You know, like, it's crazy to think these guys were training and getting ready for wars together. And now they're going to face off in a war against one another.
How do you feel about that, Andrew? Like, would you fight a friend of yours?
So let's say, for instance, you and I are in Sandman Boxing Academy, right? And we've been training. We come on the come up. We know that we're in the same weight class. This is what we're going to fight at, right? And so let's say you, just perspective-wise, I'll be Masvidal in this situation. I fucking flee because I don't like what's going on, right? And now you're bitter because we've been training. We've been doing all this work together, right? And now I'm pissed off because you took away years of my life, right? Like, we've trained. We've done all this stuff, blood, sweat, tears together. And now you flew off because you think you can have a better chance at something else somewhere else, even though you've been ride or dying with me. So that's how I see it. I see the perspective of, I see it from Kobe's eyes being like, yo, this guy's coming at me for no fucking reason. I stayed with my team. You left us, bro. Yeah. Like, you went somewhere else and decided that you were going to fight at a different camp. Need to do that, and I totally understand that's the business. If you want to get better, which Jorge has done, you know, since leaving Top Team, he's now his own little thing, right? Like, I mean, he's got his own identity. He's got, like, you know, the 5-second knockout over Ben Askren. We all know that. I mean, but for Chaos, I think he just felt that little bit of betrayal, and Chaos has never been one to mince words about friends or enemies in this business. He's not one to mince words about fucking anything. So, I mean, I side with him on that. I mean, I think Kobe's going to take him down. It's going to be a long fucking night for Jorge. But I say that, and Jorge could literally starch him with one right or hit him with those elusive knees that he does throw quite often. So I'm going to roll Covington in this fight. Who are you going with, Cole?
I think you're right, man. Covington is just he's a complete fighter. He is, and even like you were saying with like he's the guy. If Usman loses, it's going to be to Covington. It's not going to be to Masvidal.
The only guy that beats him.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, like even when I watched when Kobe went on his streak there and he won like 5 or 6 fights in a row and was murking everybody, and then Tyron Woodley called him out, and then he just made Tyron Woodley look like a chump. I mean, I was like, wow, Kobe Covington's for real, man. The guy talks his talk and he backs it the fuck up. And for me, that's all you can do. I mean, he's literally talked his way to being a title contender and walked the walk to get there too. There's guys that will go, well, Conor McGregor did it, but Conor never backed any of it up. Conor talked himself into these title fights being unranked, which I should mention. The only time he was ranked was when he was fighting in, I believe it was featherweight, correct? When he was 145.
Yeah. And then he just kept moving up, get in that fight.
And he was never a ranked fighter anywhere. And then he never defended the title at any time. And that's not me being a Conor hater. It's just stats speak for themselves. But Covington's a real deal in the welterweight division. He's murked everybody. He's kind of doing the laps too now. I wish they were putting the BMF belt on the line for this. It'd be interesting to see. And I think that we would have a new BMF champion when it's all said and done. But we know Jorge is just going to run away with that fake belt for as long as he lives. Continuing on to UFC 272, this matchup is your co-main event, and Rafael dos Anjos is back. One of my favorite fighters. We got to see him live. Unfortunately, he did not win that night. He did drop down in weight, I should mention, when he fought in that card in Edmonton. And it wasn't his greatest performance, but ever since then, he's been this different Rafael dos Anjos.
Totally, man. And he's one of those guys where his record does not tell you who he is. If you go look at his last 15 fights and then tell me another guy who has that resume, because the guys he fights are nuts. It's insane. It's between Donald Cerrone and champions and it's everyone, every single like he's fought everyone. His last 15 fights are the top 5 guys every single time. And he's right now a 50-50 fighter, but it's nuts who he fights. Nobody has a resume like that. If you can name one person who does, I'd love to hear it.
Rafael dos Anjos is an absolute beast. And I'm not going to take anything from Viziev either, because Viziev is a monster, but we haven't really gotten to this talk about. I mean, every time I watch him in the octagon, I'm like, wow, he is continuously getting better and better and better and better. And I thought his striking at the start of his career was weak and his wrestling was well-rounded. That's like switched now. His striking is much better, and now he's this complete fighter. It's not like at 11-1, he's not a great fighter. But I think RDA is going to be his hardest competition to this date.
Definitely, but I think I'm picking Fiziev in this.
Are you?
I am. I think that camp he's at right now. That he. I can't remember the name, but he's working with Hoost and that wrestling coach too, man. I think the environment he's in now, I think he's just gonna do crazy. I think you're gonna see a whole new guy, man. Like he's already, like you said, he's already a machine. He's a beast, and he's the same. Like his resume already is amazing. He hasn't had that many fights in the UFC, but he's fighting good guys, and he's looking good. And I think, I don't know. I think he's gonna win.
I think he pulls it off too. I don't know if RDA is the same kind of guy anymore. Like I said, he's been through some wars, and that brought me up to actually pulling up who he has fought. This is insane. So he won against Donald Cerrone on 2013, lost to Habib, then beat Benson Henderson, Nate Diaz, Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone, lost to Eddie Alvarez, then lost to Tony Ferguson, came back, beat Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler, lost to Covington Usman, beat Kevin Lee, lost to Leon Edwards, Michael Chiesa, and then beat Paul Felder. Like,
Crazy.
dude,
That's insane.
That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, nuts.
Holy shitballs. I'm like looking at them like, there's no way. And I'm like, top 10, five fighter, number 3 ranked contender. And you're just like, holy hell, I just had to pull that up. So, wow, that's incredible. I mean, Rafael dos Anjos is an absolute legend of the sport. One guy that I think when he retires, he's going to be a tremendous coach. Age is getting on the side of Rafael dos Anjos. I do believe he just turned 37. So, yeah, just turning 37, which is going to be, I mean, this is, we're nearing the end of Rafael dos Anjos' career and the start of Fiziev. And I really do think Fiziev will win this fight. But shout out to RDA, like we just said, that guy has took on the fucking who's who of MMA and has continued to stay in one organization, which is also the impressive part of that. Hasn't left anywhere. And also on that fight card at UFC 272, very intriguing, very weird matchup stylistically. I have no fucking idea how this is going to go. Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell, 14-1. I absolutely love him. Taking on one of the most lethal kickboxers of all time, in Edson Barbosa, who was in some great wars in 2021. Bryce Mitchell undefeated in 2021 too, which was absolutely credible for his career. And then he called out Edson, which wild. No one really calls out Edson Barbosa unless you want to get kicked in the liver and in the head really, really hard. So, I mean, obviously he might know something that we don't, but Bryce's wrestling is really fucking good. Really good. I mean, when I watch Bryce Mitchell, I've just seen him get better and better and better as we continue to watch him develop. He's quite young, has made some really fucking weird claims in the last week and so, going on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani and like basically straight up saying things about like how the government is in control of COVID and all of this other stuff and that they don't want us to have guns and stuff. I was just like, what in the actual fuck am I listening to? But hey, whatever brings me to this fight, because I'm going to watch it no matter what, because he got 2 killers in that octagon. Cole, how do you see this going?
I am a huge Bryce Mitchell fan. I seen him on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and I fell in love with him. I'm like, man, this guy's awesome. And I think he is Barbosa's kryptonite. Barbosa hates pressure. He hates being pressured. Anytime he gets pressured, he loses. He hates when people are standing right in front of him. He hates when he's moving backwards. And that's what Mitchell's going to do to him, I think. And I think it's going to be probably a decision win for Mitchell.
Yeah, I see us going 3 rounds too, to be honest. Everybody's kind of looking at the betting cards. And I mean, I think it's like minus 210 if this goes to like the 3rd round, which would not surprise me for low money odds. Bryce Mitchell is a monster who's just progressively gotten better. I agree with you to the fullest when it comes to Edson Barbosa. That dude cannot stand getting pressured. It's fucking crazy. He hates being on the defensive. But that's what happens when you're a kickboxer. You eliminate that range and being able to get that, you know, we've seen him with some crazy highlight knockouts, maybe one of the craziest knockouts in UFC history with that spinning back kick. But I just think he's had some wars. Obviously, we know that. He had some great fights in 2021, but I literally think Bryce Mitchell walks out of this as a 15-1 guy and continues that climb in this division. Something about him is just, it's amazing. And like you said, on that Theo Vaughn podcast, I was sitting there laughing my ass off the entire time because this guy is just like a hillbilly from the sticks. And if you don't believe me, check out the way he lives. He literally has it's like a camper, and then he built a platform, like a wooden platform over top of his camper so no rain or anything could get in. And then he built like a little training gym on top of that. And I'm like, what in the fucking redneck hillbilly shotgun bouncing fucking our Mountain Dew drinking are we doing here? And I was like, this can't be happening. But
the funniest part of that, Andrew, is that Theo understood completely. He was down with it. He's like, heck.
You too, right?
Yeah.
You too. No, and because Theo's like that, and shout out to Theo Vaughn. I think he's one of the best podcasters and one of the best stand-up comedians on planet Earth right now. And if you don't have a dry sense of humor, you'll never love Theo Vaughn. So when you better appreciate while he's still here, because I mean, he had a pretty hard life and got sober and stuff like that, and seems to be kicking ass and taking names. And he's just a fucking funny guy. But that Bryce Mitchell one's still one of my favorites. They're talking about how they're living, and Theo a couple times like, "Oh hell, son, you too? Just like me." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is fire!" So go check that out if you ever got the chance. I think it's called This Weekend with Theo Vaughn.
Yeah. Or this past weekend.
This past weekend with Theo Vaughn, yeah, amazing podcast. But I think it's an agreement that Cole and I are both going to roll with Bryce Mitchell on this one. Looking at the betting odds, he is a minus 145 favorite, so not a huge gap in that. Not a ton of money to be made if you want to bet on Barboza. And shit, he could do it. I mean, he's the kind of guy that loves I would say he likes, again, having the limelight on him a little bit. And I don't think he's never been good in main event situations, as we have seen. But intriguing matchup. UFC 272 goes place next weekend. We'll be tuned in live streaming. We're going to make some picks for you guys. So far in 2022, I've been on fucking fire when it comes to picks. I have literally did the math on the two that I have betted with two cards that have gone on so far. I am only one loss in those entire things, and that's because I took Robert Whittaker. You son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. I knew it, and I did the podcast the week prior leading up to, and I said, Whittaker looked better. Whittaker looked like a better fighter than he did. He looked like a more composed person in the camp videos that I saw. He looked like he wasn't the pissed off teenager that fought Izzy. And Izzy was just living, again, rent-free in his head that first fight, and got tagged for it. And I just saw Whittaker. I thought he did enough to win. I think the whole world said he did enough to win. But unfortunately, to be the champ, you have to beat the champ. So that's kind of how it works in the UFC. Also, we talked about it a little bit earlier. The one thing I really hope that gets figured out in the next, I hope this year, is the fucking judging, because this is getting atrocious to watch. So far in 2022, we've had probably 4 or 5 controversial decisions that really have flustered my mind on how this is going to work for the relevancy and how people are going to watch this sport. It continues to grow. Obviously, the UFC is never going to go anywhere. It continues to blossom. But fucking judging, Cole, tell me I'm wrong, that this has been hard to watch.
Yeah, man. I think it's in all combat sports, it's like it's a huge problem. Look at they're trying to take boxing out of the Olympics because of the judging. It's like it's such a hard thing because like everyone's opinion is different, and you're basing it on someone's opinion of the fight, and it's like, it's just strange. It's a hard thing, and I'm not really sure how to fix it. It's just, yeah, it sucks. It sucks when it's so blatant too.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when you were talking about PFL earlier, I wish that UFC would adjust to some of their point systems that they have in PFL. Just because I think it would just make it a little more crisp, a little more, complete. But I just, for the lack of better terms, man, I've almost been at the point now, I've had conversations with friends and family. I'm like, maybe I just, go out and get my credentials to do some judging, because I feel like people are so incompetent on doing their job. I mean, how do you, like, again, instance this weekend when they announced, 48, 47 Izzy, and then there's 49, 46 Whittaker. I went, what in the fuck just happened? Like, how? If anything, it was 49, 46 Izzy, if that's how they're going to proceed it. I mean, I understand the takedowns, and you and I have had this conversation throughout the last 15 years. Octagon control is the number one thing when it comes to, I think, judging. And obviously, I think Robert did a little bit better, maybe making the pace in that fight and controlling, but Izzy just stayed square. You know what I mean? He didn't really do a whole lot extra. So I think it's a broken system. I really hope going forward in the future, there's some kind of resolution to this. And I know that Dana White has probably heard this from every single commission in the world. That's the other thing too, is that you have to battle these commissions. And it's a guy who, you like yourself, runs, different fights and different events and stuff like that. I can only imagine how hard commissions are to get in the first place.
Yeah. And then like you hear the argument that maybe judges should be held accountable a little bit more too, maybe some of the officials, I don't know if that would maybe help, like what's going on here, or some kind of replay system. I don't really know. It's so tough, but yeah, it's a hard thing to. Yeah, man, there's just too much to it, and I don't know what to do about it. It's tough.
Yeah, I know that they implemented the systems of especially with boxing, that they really had to be on top of it with the commissions and stuff like that, and to take it. The big thing is, I think a lot of people in judging world see name, right? So immediately, you see Israel Adesanya, right, and that guy goes, no matter what, he's already got it in his mind. This guy's winning the fucking fight, no matter what I watch. Right. And I feel like it's a tainted way of doing things, but I really think that's how some judges proceed to scorecard events. And I'm like, fuck, you can't see it like that. Like even as a commentator's perspective, when I was at Palace Athenas, there were heavy favorites on the card, but you can't, you just can't be that guy to be like, lock in on one thing. You got to give your opponent the respect. You got to give the other person respect. And sometimes it can surprise you, which happened to me a ton at that event. And I was just like, all right, humbling. Like how I thought this was going to go isn't going to go that way, but you have to almost clear your mind entirely of all the shit you see before and all the stuff you hear before. So I really hope going forward, judges have removed that ego, you know what I mean? And just some of them need to be fired. The ones that keep going to in Jacksonville and in Houston, especially, I don't know what commission they have in Houston, but it is fucking horrible. Anyways, some of the love that I want to give on this, I want to start a shoey of the week. I had the caption ready to go, and it was Ty doing the shoey. It just won't load for me, and I'm getting a little upset about it. But the shoey goes to Tai Tuivasa, which, not a lot of people are giving him the respect this man deserves. What a fucking performance. Derek Lewis hit him with some of the shots that would have folded both of us at the exact same time. And I was just like, he had him pressed. Derek Lewis had him pressed against the cage and was feeding him. And you could hear the crack. And I'm like, yeah, this is probably over. Like Ty looks like, he's getting crushed here. And he pulled himself up, and that elbow, man, wow.
Yeah, that's you could almost see it, when he stood up. When Lewis stood up, it's like he was not there anymore. Like it was like he just it was everything he had left. And when he stood up, his hands were by his waist, and he was just like, it was because I was rooting for Lewis. I'm a big Lewis fan, and
millions of people are, for the record. Millions.
Yeah. And when he stood up, I knew that's not the same guy who just dropped him, and crazy, wild.
He had that look in his eye, which is like that dead eye, like I am gassed, man. And we've seen like he had that same face. Now he did beat Alexander Volkov, but he was getting his ass murked in that fight. And you could see the dead eyes in the fourth round where I was like, oh God, Derek Lewis is gonna get killed here. And then just bang, with 10 seconds left, he just hit that knockout. And I was like, holy shit, don't count out Derek Lewis ever, right? And I expected something from that, but Ty, again, he credited all of his training and sparring with Mark Hunt. He's like, who I've been hit by for the first 10 years of my career? Mark Hunt. And I'm like, that's a very valid point, because that boy had heavy hands back in the day too.
Man, I think, isn't that Truman who's fighting? I think that was Tuivasa's last loss.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
Yeah. So that's all, and so he's got some hype, I think.
Yeah, the story of Tai Tuivasa is absolutely crazy. He was on a 3-fight losing streak.
Right.
Essentially, they told him, hey, man, you need to win one of these fights coming up or you're fucking done, essentially. And Ty came in and won. He walked out to My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. And everybody was like, what in the fuck are we watching? And then he just, boom, knocked out. I can't remember who the hell it was, but it was
Struve, I think.
Struve, right? Stefan Struve, because everybody gave the advantage to Struve because he was 9 feet taller than Ty. And then Ty fought Greg Hardy. And then Greg Hardy was the massive favorite, right? Former Dallas Cowboy, has had a pretty decent average run, I would say, now in the UFC. Not a bad transition from football. I'll give him a ton of credit. But he got absolutely knocked out by Ty, and then Ty goes on and fights Derek Lewis and moves himself into number 3 contention. Now, do I think Ty is good enough to win the title? No, not a fucking chance. I think Ty is a great mid-carder. If we were referring to like the WWE, he's a great intercontinental champion kind of guy, but he's never going to be a Roman Reigns, right? Like Francis Ngannou is going to walk away with this division. I really do think that Francis needs. I hope Dana and Francis get on some kind of term here. Obviously, Francis Ngannou has, I think, one fight left, and then he's a free agent. And it sounds like, he's just asking for the money he thinks he deserves, which to me is fucking banana land because, I mean, he got stopped a couple times early in his career, right? Like, let's face it, he's not the most perfect fighter. He lost to Stipe. I mean, there's losses on his record, folks. He doesn't deserve to be paid any less than I think what Stipe got paid. I think that's what Francis should get paid. I think it was like 1.45 million or something like that. I think that's deserving for Francis Ngannou because he's like now on Jackass and he's representing like the UFC and the media and like he's going back home to Africa and the media is eating that up too. It's like he's a very humble guy, right? And Francis is a killer too. Like, I mean, fuck, he can stop anything that walks. But, I mean, realistically, Tai Tuivasa is just not there. I mean, the caliber of fighter is just not the same. I say that, but we all read off Derek Lewis against Tai because we all thought Derek Lewis, being the third-ranked fighter who knocks fucking everybody out, was going to knock him out because, of course, the other cool stat is Derek Lewis has the most, of course, knockouts in UFC history. So I was like, all right, well, for sure, Tai doesn't have a chance in this one, being the 11th-ranked fighter, and when you fucking know it, a dirty elbow coming up. And, I mean, the thing is, you can't count that kind of guy out, man, right? Like he's just a killer.
Yeah, he's a fighter. That's what he is. He's I think he's got like 5 knockouts in a row now. He's just that guy. He's tough. He doesn't care. Like he'll take a hit, he'll get back up, and he'll knock you out.
It's absolutely insane, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, nonetheless, that was just a tip of the iceberg and a tip of the cap to him because he was fucking absolutely incredible in that. No one, except for me, which I predicted, I will say as part of my scorecard, he did win that fight. So I did have him winning it. That was, I was getting pretty hyped about that. But this upcoming Friday, tomorrow, folks. Oh my God, I'm so pumped for this fight. Bellator 275 taking place very far away. Very far away. It's an international card, which is going to be amazing. Austin Vanderford, otherwise known as Mr. Van Zant, married to Paige Van Zant. Everybody's like, who the hell is that guy? And then, of course, taking on one of my absolute favorite fighters in Gegard Mousasi. This is fucking matchup heaven for me. Shout out to Bellator. Shout out to Scott Coker. This is a main event that deserves to be a main event. Austin Vanderford has literally moved his way up from being just Paige Van Zant's boyfriend to being legit. It's true. Everybody just said, who the hell is that guy? That's the guy that's dating Paige, right? Like, no one really gave a shit about Austin Vanderford. But then he started to be this well-rounded ground game guy. Take you down. Fucking relentless. And he trains with some killers, too. His wrestling is with Chael Sonnen in Oregon. So, I mean, he's worked with some great guys in his camp. But Gegard Mousasi, baby. Whoo! One of the most well-rounded fighters in the history of MMA. I thought he had the worst run in UFC that he possibly could have had, but it's great because it led him to be a kick-ass superstar in Bellator. Cole, how do you see this fight going?
I think Mousasi. I think he's the best middleweight fighter right now. I honestly think he would beat Izzy. I think he makes things look easy. And I know you said that he had the worst run in the UFC. I don't think he did. I thought
it was bad. It just wasn't what everybody hoped it would have been.
Yeah, I mean, but he left on like a 5-fight win streak, a 6-fight win streak. He lost, I think, 2 or 3 times, but I would argue that he only really lost once. He whooped Uriah, got caught with a knee, and then rematched him and whooped him again. He beat Machida, and the judges gave it to Machida, rematched him, beat him again. He really only had one loss. He got choked out by Souza, who he had beat before already. He's knocked out everyone. He's knocked out Weidman. He's knocked out Dan Henderson. I think he's like almost 50 wins, and he has like 6 or 7 losses. He's insane, and he destroyed Rory. He made Rory look like he's never fought before. He destroyed, he beat Lima on one leg. He was friggin' hurting. I don't know, man. He's good, but his one thing is when people wrestle him, sometimes he loses. And that's where Vanderford could get him.
I can guarantee you with $1,000 bet right now that Austin Vanderford literally probably watched the Jacare Souza tape and said, "This is how I'm going to beat Gegard Mousasi." And I mean, realistically, Jacare was very able very easily to take him down. And it wasn't like Mousasi put up the biggest fight in that fight either. And I mean, Jacare obviously got the finish, but I think Vanderford could learn a lot from watching that tape. And again, I'm sure his coaches have him studying every angle that Mousasi moves in, because Gegard is so lanky. He's just so elusive. And the thing is, when his striking is on and it's precise, it's so fluent and it's so smooth that you just can't stop it no matter who you are, right? Like we talked about the Machida matchup. Loyola wins, then comes back and gets his ass absolutely murked. Like Mousasi is just, he's such a clinical practitioner of just knowing what's going on, right? He's just so smart and calculated that I think this could be a bad matchup for Austin Vanderford. And Austin at this point has fought, I'm not going to say he's fought the who's who of the Bellator, middleweight division. He's beaten tin cans essentially, but this is going to be his highest form of competition. Even if Austin loses this fight, there's a lot of pride to take away from fighting Gegard Mousasi, because this guy is going into the MMA Hall of Fame at some point, no matter where he goes. I think he's already probably solidified himself at the Bellator MMA Hall of Fame because of the run he's been on since he's been there. But this guy is a legend of the sport, so you can't even if you do take the loss, humble it, let that blemish, come back a better fighter. But if you're Vanderford and you win this, whoo, baby, the sky is the fucking limit.
It'd be nuts. Like his level of competition would be like that. The step up would be like from like the ground street to the top of the Empire State Building. That's where you're going, because Mousasi's the best. And if you beat that after honestly, I can't even name one person Vanderford's beat right now off the top of my head. So
his last fight was a good one. I'm just trying to remember who it was too, but
exactly.
I was backstage for the Bellator media at that point, but Austin Vanderford, he won that fight, but he got cut open, so he wasn't available for media stuff afterwards. And I do have media credentials for this one too, so I'm actually pretty excited. I'll be chilling backstage again on this one. And Bellator and I just have had a really great relationship so far this entire time. They've been really, really cool with COVID and all that other stuff that's been going on. And I'm just trying to pull up who the hell he beat. And I was just thinking to myself, Fabian Edwards. That's who it was. Leon Edwards' little brother. And he took him to the ground, beat him up badly for all of the rounds. And then Austin came up with the worst for wear. Fabian got him with an elbow, and it kind of separated in between his eyeball there, and he had a fucking huge gash, and he was just constantly leaking. He finished the fight, so props to him for being a tough customer. But again, Gegard Mousasi, man, this is you want it, you got it. And the best part is it's a Friday night fight card. That's the one thing I've always loved about Bellator, is that they don't try to compete with anybody. They just been they stick to their Fridays. They do their pay-per-view events on Fridays. It's the smart way of doing things. For those that are watching us right now, we were talking about it. The wins-loss record is absolutely just insane when it comes to who Gegard Mousasi's beat. Let's cut John Salter in there his last fight. Douglas Lima, Loyola Machida, Rory McDonald, Alexander Schlemko, Chris Weidman, Uriah Hall, Vitor Belfort, Diego Santos. These are a killer's row of people. It's like the RDA thing. It's like, hey, who the hell hasn't Gegard Mousasi faced yet?
I think he beat Mark Hunt. I think he fought Mark Hunt before.
Yep. So this is a crazy card. If you guys can, tune in tomorrow. We're going to be backstage talking to some of the fighters, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Picking their brains after a fight. That's my favorite thing, man, because the fighter high is never better when you win that fight, because you can express all of the emotions, which is always leads to some great clips. But tune in tomorrow. We're going to do a little, like I said, we're going to do a little recap. We'll pick our picks throughout the week for UFC 272. You never know what's going to happen with weight cuts. You never know if people miss weight. You never know if people get COVID in this crazy fucking time. We're almost done with all of the restrictions in Saskatchewan. Next week, no more masks, which I'm sure you are grateful for when it comes to your gym.
Definitely.
Oh man, I've never been more excited as a province to finally be done this shit, because this is going on almost 3 years and I'm losing my sanity. And more than anything, I'm just happy to see people out and about and being able to do what they love. And, for instance, last night went to the Regina Pats game. And if you're non-vaxxed, you were allowed to go in. And again, I've always said at the start of this thing, I'm not going to fucking kill you if you don't get vaxxed. I don't give a shit if you don't. But it was good to see a full house. They had 5,000 people their first night, which is a sellout crowd for them. And then last night they had 3,900 people, which just tells me that people have been sitting around for way too long and they're finally ready to just enjoy life again. So with that being said, there's some scary fucking times going on, not COVID related anymore. I'm praying for all those in Ukraine that are absolutely devastating. If you're watching the news last night, I couldn't believe my eyes. Just nuts, man. And my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. And as John Lennon once said, make love, not war. So with that being said, that is going to be all for us tonight. I think that's a great way to end this. You can find us, of course, the Boomtown Pod on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been horrible on Instagram as of late. I apologize. I will get better at that. I will also make sure Cole will be helping out with that too. So he'll be more of an admin role on that, which is stellar. So he's going to share a lot of content with you. If I can't be with you guys, Cole's going to be with you guys. Cole is here, my ride or die, man. He's been one of my best friends for 16 years now. So we are excited to bring you a ton of content. Cole, how can the people find you, man?
Yeah, everywhere. Sandman Boxing System. All platforms. Come check me out. If you're in Saskatoon, come find me and actually check me out in person. Get some boxing lessons, get some cardio. Come hang out.
I heard he has a nice ass. I don't know. You can look it up for yourself. Nonetheless, with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. And like I said, my friends, make love, not war. Have a great night.